Emily Carter stood at the massive oak door with trembling hands and two sleeping babies wrapped in worn blankets. Rain poured down her back as thunder crashed overhead. She had walked 3 miles in this storm because Nathan Blake needed to see what he had thrown away. 3 years ago, he had fired her and called her a liar when she told him she was pregnant. 3 years of struggle and shame and working 2 jobs while her babies grew without a father. Now here she was at his mansion door again, and her heart hammered so loud, she thought it might wake the twins. Before she could knock, the door swung open, and there he stood. Nathan Blake in an expensive suit with those cold gray eyes that once made her feel invisible. But when his gaze dropped to the bundles in her arms, and he saw 2 pairs of striking blue eyes staring back at him beneath their beautiful brown skin, the color drained from his face like someone had pulled a plug. Emily had started working at the Blake mansion when she was 23 years old. She needed the job desperately after her mother got sick and the medical bills piled up like mountains. Nathan Blake was different back then, or maybe she had just been too young to see the truth. He worked 18-hour days and barely noticed the staff who kept his massive house running. Emily cleaned his office and brought him coffee, and sometimes late at night, when everyone else had gone home, they would talk. He told her about the pressure of running a company worth billions. She told him about her dreams of going back to school and becoming a teacher. Those conversations felt real and raw, and for the first time in her hard life, Emily felt seen. But Nathan Blake had built walls around his heart made of money and power and fear. His father had raised him to believe emotions were weaknesses and love was just another business transaction. So when their late-night talks turned into stolen glances, and when stolen glances turned into one night of passion that changed everything, Nathan did what he knew best. He protected himself. The morning after that night, Nathan called Emily into his office. His face was stone cold and distant. He told her it was a mistake and it could never happen again. Emily felt her heart crack, but she nodded and went back to work because she needed the job. She told herself she could handle seeing him every day and pretending that night meant nothing. Then 6 weeks later, she realized she was pregnant. Emily spent 3 days trying to find the courage to tell him. She practiced the words in front of her bathroom mirror 100 times. When she finally knocked on his office door, her hands shook so badly she had to clasp them together. Nathan was signing papers when she walked in. She took a deep breath and said the words that would destroy her life. "I am pregnant and the baby is yours." The silence that followed felt like drowning. Then Nathan looked up at her with eyes so cold they could freeze fire. He stood slowly and walked around his desk until he was inches from her face. His voice was quiet and deadly when he spoke. "You think you can trap me with this lie? You think I do not know what women like you do for money? Get out of my house, and if you ever come back or speak my name, I will destroy whatever pathetic life you have left." Emily felt the world tilt under her feet. She opened her mouth to defend herself, but no words came out. Nathan pressed a button on his desk, and 2 security guards appeared. They escorted her out through the service entrance like she was a criminal. The other staff members watched with wide eyes as she was marched past them. Emily held her head high until she reached the street, and then she collapsed against a wall and sobbed until her throat was raw. She had no savings and no support and a baby growing inside her. Her mother was too sick to help, and her father had left when she was 5. Emily was completely alone. She found work cleaning offices at night and waiting tables during the day. The pregnancy was hard and lonely. At her 20-week ultrasound, the technician smiled and said, "Congratulations, it is twins." Emily burst into tears right there on the examination table. 2 babies. 2 lives depending on her. She worked until the day she went into labor, and then she worked again 2 weeks after giving birth because she had no choice. The twins were miracle babies with rich brown skin like their mother and bright blue eyes inherited from their father. Emily named them Jacob and Sophia. Jacob came out first, screaming his lungs out with tiny fists pumping the air. Sophia followed 3 minutes later, quiet and observant, like she was already studying the world. Those blue eyes shocked the nurses. They kept asking Emily about the father, and she would just smile sadly and change the subject. The combination of her beautiful dark skin and those striking blue eyes made her babies absolutely stunning. Raising twins alone was harder than anything Emily had ever done. There were nights when both babies cried at the same time, and she had not slept in 48 hours, and she would sit on the floor of their tiny apartment and cry with them. But there were also moments of pure magic. The first time Jacob smiled at her. The first time Sophia laughed. Watching them learn to crawl and then walk holding onto furniture and each other. Emily took pictures of everything because even in her exhaustion, she knew these moments were precious. She never bad-mouthed Nathan to anyone, even though rage burned in her chest like hot coals. The twins deserved better than growing up hearing their mother speak hate about their father, Nathan. Blake spent 3 years trying to forget Emily Carter. He threw himself into work with even more intensity than before. He dated models and actresses who looked perfect on his arm at charity events. He bought another company, and then another, expanding his empire until his name was in every business magazine. But late at night, in his enormous empty mansion, he could not escape the memory of Emily's face when he called her a liar. Sometimes he would wake up in a cold sweat, remembering the hurt in her eyes. He told himself he had done the right thing. Women tried to trap wealthy men all the time. His lawyers had assured him that without proof she had no claim. But doubt crept in during quiet moments. What if he had been wrong? What if she had been telling the truth? Nathan would pour himself expensive whiskey and push those thoughts away because admitting he might have made a mistake meant admitting he had destroyed an innocent woman's life. His assistant Victoria knew something was eating at him, but she never asked. Nathan's business partner Marcus finally confronted him one day. "You have been miserable for 3 years, man. Whatever is haunting you, deal with it, or it will destroy you." But Nathan was too proud and too afraid to face what he had done. The day Emily showed up at his door was the day Nathan's carefully constructed world fell apart. He had been working late reviewing contracts when the doorbell rang. His staff had gone home for the evening, so he answered it himself, annoyed at the interruption. When he saw Emily standing there soaking wet with 2 bundles in her arms, his heart stopped. She looked older and tired, but still beautiful in a way that made his chest ache. Her dark skin glistened with raindrops, and her natural hair was pulled back in a simple bun. Then he saw the babies, and time seemed to freeze. 2 pairs of blue eyes identical to his own stared up at him from the most beautiful brown faces he had ever seen. Those were Blake family eyes passed down through 4 generations. There was no mistaking them. The contrast was stunning and undeniable. The twins had Emily's rich complexion and his unmistakable eyes. The blood drained from his face and his knees went weak. Emily's voice cut through his shock like a knife. "These are your children, Jacob and Sophia. They are 3 years old today. I did not come here for money or revenge. I came because they deserve to know their father, and you deserve to know what you threw away." Before Nathan could respond, Emily turned and walked back into the rain. Nathan stood frozen in his doorway as the rain poured down. His mind was racing so fast he felt dizzy. Those blue eyes haunted him. They were proof he could not deny. He had called Emily a liar and thrown her out, and she had been telling the truth. She had been pregnant with his children, twins, and he had sent her away with nothing. The realization hit him like a physical blow, and Nathan stumbled backward into his house. He grabbed his phone with shaking hands and called Marcus. "Get to my house now, I need you." Marcus arrived 20 minutes later to find Nathan sitting on the floor of his living room, staring at nothing. It took an hour for Nathan to tell the whole story. Marcus listened without judgment, and when Nathan finished, his friend was quiet for a long time. Then Marcus said the words that changed everything. You cannot fix the past, but you can choose what happens next. Those kids need their father, and that woman deserves an apology, even though no apology will ever be enough. What kind of man do you want to be, Nathan? Do you want to be your father, or do you want to be better? Nathan did not sleep that night. He sat in his office going through old security footage until he found recordings from 3 years ago. There was Emily bringing him coffee and smiling shyly. There was Emily working harder than anyone else on his staff. There was Emily leaving that horrible day, escorted by security guards, with tears streaming down her face. Nathan watched that moment over and over until he felt physically sick. He had been so cruel and so wrong. His pride and his father's poisonous teachings had made him into a monster. As the sun rose, Nathan made a decision. He would find Emily and beg for forgiveness. He would meet his children and try to be the father they deserved. He would spend the rest of his life making up for what he had done. But first he needed to understand the kind of strength it took for Emily to survive what he put her through. Nathan hired a private investigator who reported back within days. Emily Carter worked 2 jobs and lived in a tiny apartment in a rough neighborhood. She had no help raising the twins. Medical records showed she had given birth alone and left the hospital after 24 hours because she could not afford to stay longer. She had never applied for child support or tried to contact Nathan again. She had simply survived. Nathan felt shame so deep it made him nauseous. This woman, who he had thrown away like garbage, had raised his children with grace and dignity. She had every right to hate him, but when she showed up at his door, she had not screamed or demanded money. She had simply told him the truth and walked away. Nathan realized he had spent 3 years feeling sorry for himself, while Emily had spent 3 years being a hero. He needed to see her again, but he knew showing up unannounced would be wrong. Instead, he wrote a letter. It took him 17 attempts to get the words right. Dear Emily, there is no apology that can cover what I did to you. I was wrong in every possible way. I let my fear and pride destroy something precious, and I hurt you when you were most vulnerable. You have raised our children alone, and that makes you stronger than I will ever be. Please let me meet Jacob and Sophia. Please give me a chance to be their father. I do not deserve your forgiveness, but they deserve to have both parents in their lives. I will do whatever you ask. I will give you anything you need. Just please do not let my mistakes rob them of a father. Nathan signed the letter and had it delivered to Emily's apartment with a single white rose. Emily read Nathan's letter with tears streaming down her face. She had not expected an apology. She had not expected anything except maybe another rejection. But here was Nathan Blake admitting he was wrong. Part of her wanted to tear up the letter and tell him to stay away. He had caused her so much pain. But Emily was not a bitter person. She thought about Jacob, who asked questions about why he did not have a daddy like the other kids at daycare. She thought about Sophia, who was shy and sensitive and deserved every chance at happiness. Emily knew her own pain did not matter as much as her children's future. So she wrote back, "You can meet them, but on my terms. We will start slow. You do not get to be their father overnight. You have to earn that. And Nathan, if you hurt them the way you hurt me, I will make sure you regret it for the rest of your life." They met at a park on a sunny Saturday afternoon. Nathan arrived 30 minutes early and paced near the playground like a nervous teenager. When Emily appeared with the twins, his breath caught in his throat. Jacob was running ahead full of energy while Sophia held her mother's hand. Both children were beautiful and healthy and so clearly loved. Their brown skin glowed in the sunlight, and those blue eyes were even more striking in person. Emily stopped a few feet away from Nathan, and the twins hid behind her, legs peeking at the tall stranger. Nathan knelt down so he was at their eye level. His voice shook when he spoke. "Hi, Jacob. Hi, Sophia. My name is Nathan. I am a friend of your mom's." Jacob stepped forward first because he was the brave one. "You are really tall, mister. Do you play basketball?" Nathan laughed, and it was the first real laugh he had felt in years. "I am pretty tall, but I am not very good at basketball. What do you like to play?" Jacob launched into an enthusiastic description of superheroes and dinosaurs. Sophia stayed quiet, but Nathan noticed she was watching him carefully with those blue eyes that matched his own. After a few minutes, Nathan pulled out a small box. "I brought you both something. I hope that is okay." He looked at Emily, who nodded slowly. Inside the box were 2 stuffed animals, a lion for Jacob and a bunny for Sophia. The twins' faces lit up, and even shy Sophia stepped forward to take her gift. "Thank you, Mr. Nathan." Her voice was soft and sweet, and it broke Nathan's heart into a million pieces. They spent 2 hours at the park that day. Nathan pushed the twins on swings and helped them across the monkey bars and listened to their endless stories and questions. Emily watched from a bench nearby, ready to intervene if needed. But Nathan was patient and gentle and genuinely interested in getting to know his children. He marveled at how Jacob had Emily's bright smile and Sophia had her thoughtful nature. When it was time to leave, Jacob hugged Nathan's legs. "Will we see you again, Mr. Nathan?" Nathan looked at Emily with hope in his eyes. She nodded once. "Yes, buddy, you will see me again. I promise." As they walked away, Nathan called out to Emily, "Thank you." She turned back, and for the first time since that awful day 3 years ago, she almost smiled. "Do not thank me yet. You have a lot to prove." Over the next 6 months, Nathan showed up for every scheduled visit. He never canceled or showed up late. He learned that Jacob loved adventure and Sophia loved books. He started reading parenting books and calling Marcus in a panic about normal kid things. Is it bad if they eat chicken nuggets for 3 meals in a row? How do you handle a tantrum? What does it mean when they say they have a tummy ache? Marcus laughed at him, but also helped guide him. "You are learning, Nathan. That is what matters." Nathan started helping Emily financially, but he did it carefully. He paid off her medical bills and student loans from years ago. He made sure the twins had everything they needed: clothes and toys, and a college fund that would give them any future they wanted. He bought Emily a reliable car when hers broke down, and when she protested, he simply said, "Your safety matters, and so does theirs." Slowly, Emily began to see the man Nathan could be when he let his walls down. He was thoughtful and funny and surprisingly good with the kids. He admitted his mistakes without making excuses. One evening after the twins fell asleep at his house, Nathan and Emily sat on his back porch drinking coffee. Nathan spoke first, his voice heavy with emotion. "I think about that day all the time, Emily. I think about what I said to you and how I treated you, and I feel sick. You deserved so much better." Emily was quiet for a long time. Then she said something that shocked him. "I forgave you months ago, Nathan. Not because you deserve it, but because holding on to that anger was destroying me. But forgiveness does not mean I trust you yet. Trust has to be earned." Nathan nodded, understanding the gift she had given him. As the months passed, Nathan and Emily developed a friendship built on shared love for their children. Nathan learned about Emily's dreams of becoming a teacher, and he quietly enrolled her in night classes at the best university in the city. When she found out, she called him crying. "This is too much, Nathan." He smiled on the other end of the phone. "Nothing is too much for the woman who gave me the greatest gifts of my life." Emily realized something had shifted in her heart. She was not just seeing Nathan as the father of her children anymore. She was seeing him as a man who had done terrible things, but was choosing every day to be better. They started spending more time together as a family. Weekend trips to the zoo. Movie nights where the twins fell asleep between them on the couch. Nathan teaching Jacob to ride a bike, while Emily helped Sophia overcome her fear of swimming. These moments felt natural and right, like puzzle pieces finally clicking into place. One night after tucking the twins into bed, Nathan found Emily on his balcony looking at the stars. He stood beside her and without thinking took her hand. Emily looked down at their joined hands and then up at his face. Nathan's voice was barely a whisper. I know I have no right to ask this. I know what I did was unforgivable. But Emily, I am in love with you. I think I have been since those late-night talks 3 years ago. I was just too broken and scared to admit it. Emily felt her heart racing. She had built walls around herself to survive, and Nathan was asking her to tear them down. What if you hurt me again? What if this does not work and the twins get caught in the middle? Nathan squeezed her hand gently. I cannot promise I will be perfect, Emily, but I promise I will never lie to you. I will never push you away. I will spend every day proving that you can trust me. I will love you and Jacob and Sophia with everything I have. I will be the man you deserved 3 years ago. Emily felt tears sliding down her cheeks. She thought about the scared girl who had been thrown out into the rain. She thought about the single mother who worked until her hands bled to feed her babies. She thought about the forgiveness she had chosen and the healing she had witnessed. Then she thought about the future and the man standing beside her who had fought his own demons to become worthy of a second chance. Emily turned to face Nathan fully and put her hand on his cheek. I am scared, but I am also ready to try. Nathan pulled her into his arms and held her like she was the most precious thing in the world. They stood there, under the stars, holding each other and letting 3 years of pain finally wash away. Nathan and Emily took things slowly after that night. They went on actual dates, leaving the twins with Marcus, who turned out to be an amazing babysitter. They talked for hours about everything, the good and the bad. Nathan told Emily about his childhood with a cold father who measured love in dollar signs. Emily told Nathan about the nights she cried herself to sleep, wondering if she was failing her children. She also shared stories about growing up in a neighborhood where opportunities were scarce and how her grandmother had taught her to be proud of who she was. Nathan listened and learned and began to understand the strength it took for Emily to survive in a world that often tried to break people like her. They learned each other all over again, but this time with honesty and vulnerability. 6 months later, on a beach at sunset, with Jacob and Sophia playing in the sand nearby, Nathan got down on one knee. Emily Carter, you are the strongest person I have ever known. You are an incredible mother and an amazing woman. You gave me a second chance when I did not deserve one. You taught me what real strength looks like. Will you marry me and let me spend the rest of my life making you happy? Emily looked at the man who had broken her heart, and then pieced it back together with patience and love. She looked at her children who were running toward them, shouting with excitement. She looked at the life they had built from ashes and pain. Yes, Nathan. Yes, I will marry you. They were married 3 months later in a small ceremony with close friends and family. Jacob and Sophia were ring bearers and flower girl, and they took their jobs very seriously. When Nathan and Emily exchanged vows, there was not a dry eye in the room. Nathan promised to honor Emily every day and to be the father their children deserved. Emily promised to trust him with her heart and to build a future together based on forgiveness and love. After the ceremony, Marcus gave a toast. I watched Nathan at his lowest point, and I watched him fight to become better. Emily, you saved him in ways you will never fully understand. And Nathan, you better spend every day of your life making sure she knows how lucky you are. Everyone laughed and cheered, and the twins ran around stealing cake. That night, as they slow danced under string lights, Emily whispered in Nathan's ear, "Thank you for becoming the man I needed." Nathan pulled back to look at her face. "Thank you for seeing that man even when I could not see him myself." They built a beautiful life together after that. Emily finished her teaching degree and got a job at an elementary school she loved. Nathan made changes at his company, creating better policies for working parents and single mothers. He donated millions to organizations that helped women in situations like Emily had faced. Jacob and Sophia grew up knowing they were deeply loved by both parents. They knew their story had a rough beginning, But they also knew that love and forgiveness could heal even the deepest wounds, years later when the twins were teenagers asking questions about how their parents met. Emily and Nathan sat them down and told them the truth. They did not sugarcoat the painful parts. Nathan admitted his terrible mistakes, and Emily explained how hard those early years had been. But they also explained how they found their way back to each other through honesty and second chances. Sophia looked at her parents with tears in her eyes. "You could have given up on each other." Emily smiled and took Nathan's hand. "We could have. But some things are worth fighting for. Love is always worth fighting for." Jacob, who was growing into a strong young man with his father's blue eyes and his mother's warm smile, spoke up. "I am glad you both fought. Our family is pretty awesome." Nathan laughed and pulled both twins into a hug. "You two are the reason we fought. You are our everything." As the sun set that evening, the Blake family sat together on their back porch, sharing stories and laughing. Emily looked around at her husband and her children and felt overwhelming gratitude. She had walked through fire to get here, but it had been worth every painful step. Nathan caught her eye and smiled that gentle smile he saved just for her. And in that moment, Emily knew without a doubt that they had found their happy ending. The years continued to unfold like chapters in a beautiful book. Nathan's company grew, but he never let work consume him the way it once had. He made it home for dinner every night and never missed a school play or soccer game. Emily thrived as a teacher, and her students adored her warmth and patience. She had a gift for reaching kids who struggled just like she once had. Many of her students were children of color who needed someone who understood their journey. On weekends, the family would gather in their kitchen and cook together, laughing as flour flew everywhere, and the twins argued playfully about whose turn it was to stir. Nathan would catch Emily's eye across the chaos and mouth the words, "I love you." She would smile back and her heart would feel so full it might burst. They created traditions like Sunday morning pancakes and Friday movie nights. Every year on the twins' birthday, they would go back to that park where Nathan first met them. Jacob and Sophia would run to the same swings they had played on as toddlers, even though they were too big for them now. Nathan and Emily would sit on that same bench holding hands and remembering how far they had come. Nathan never stopped trying to make up for his mistakes. He volunteered at women's shelters and spoke at events about the importance of supporting single mothers. He used his story as a cautionary tale about pride and fear and the damage they could cause. He also became an advocate for racial justice, realizing that Emily had faced challenges he never had to think about because of the color of her skin. He listened when she talked about the extra scrutiny she faced as a black woman. He learned about the invisible burdens she carried every day. And he used his privilege and his platform to speak up and make changes. People were sometimes shocked by his honesty, but Nathan did not care about his reputation anymore. He cared about making a difference. Emily watched him transform from a cold businessman into a compassionate advocate, and she fell more in love with him every day. They faced challenges like any couple. There were arguments about parenting styles and moments of frustration when old insecurities surfaced. But they had learned to communicate and to choose each other even when it was hard. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Nathan surprised Emily with a trip back to the beach where he had proposed. They walked along the shore at sunset, just the two of them, while Marcus watched the kids. Nathan stopped and turned to face his wife. 10 years ago, I did not think I deserved happiness. You proved me wrong every single day. Emily wrapped her arms around his neck. We saved each other, Nathan. That is the truth. They kissed as waves crashed around their feet, and somewhere in the distance, seagulls called out. It was a perfect moment in a life full of them. The kind of moment that only exists because two people chose forgiveness over bitterness and love over fear. And as they walked back up the beach hand in hand, Emily thought about that girl in the rain holding two babies and wondered what she would say if she could see this future. She would probably cry tears of joy and disbelief. She would probably hold those babies tighter and whisper that everything was going to be okay. Because it was. It truly was.